Our panelists today are Chanan Averbuch, Michael Katz from Zignage, Todd Rickenbach from Render Impact. And just to start us off today, we're going to talk about a little bit about planning, because planning is a big important factor when we design our AV systems and our video walls, and we plan what we're going to put in our properties. So with that, Michael Katz, what information is critical to the success of a digital signage project?
So the important question, and I actually list this on the bottom of all my emails, is what will be the end user experience? What do you want them to see, visual, hear, oral, and interact with touch? If you can also include the other two senses, taste and smell, then you really get an immersive experience. As a real example, I was working a number of years ago with a designer integrator, and he mentioned a project for a stadium client using 4 portrait mode, 55-inch or 65-inch displays in a corporate venue space. I asked one main question, and eventually the project expanded tenfold. And the question was, what is your audio strategy? And then that expanded to, well, if you're going to have audio, you have to control the audio. Well, we might as well control the video. Well, now let's put a control system in. Well, if we're going to put a control system in, what are the components can we add to that project? So it went from about $24,000 to $250,000, mainly with that question. So make sure you ask that question.
It's pretty funny, Michael. Audio makes a big difference. I mean, when people put in video walls, if they just plan on putting a couple speakers in, because, so say for instance, your video wall might have a waterfall. If you can just add a little bit of sound of that video waterfall on that video, it just makes the video come to life. It's a simple thing to do. People don't think about it. We see it all the times. We ask them, hey, can you put a couple speakers up and add some sound? And they go, no, but we might do it in the future. They're missing the boat on some really great immersive video. Yeah.
Also want to add in, so I was in AV integration as well. So we found that a lot of times people don't plan in advance to cover the schedule. So I would say make sure there's enough time built into the schedule, because you want to create and design the content. You want to order and integrate all the hardware and software components of the project. You want to train the end users responsible for managing and maintaining all the aspects of the project. And then you want to train additional staff in case any of the people who are in charge of the project go on vacation, get let go, get sick or resign. So you want to make sure you cover that so that you're not scrambling at the end of the project and you now have gone over your schedule time frame, which is not good.
Yeah, that's important. Well, thank you, Michael. So Todd, I got a question for you.
Sure.
What are your viewer personas, like their goals and purposes, have to do with content strategy and planning?
Sure. So, ideally, before embarking on any sort of video wall or digital signage project, you should really think about, what's the purpose of me having this? What do we want it to do? What do we want it to achieve? Many people are out there in the field, they see video walls, these huge video walls that impress people, or they're really driving sales, or they're driving foot traffic, and they know they want one. They want one in their lobby or their office, their corporate building somewhere. And they immediately start looking into the technology, the hardware. They want that screen. They go out and they start looking for that screen, but really they should start thinking about, who's going to view my screen? What's the persona of that person? In other words, what's the ideal audience? Who are these people? Also, what do we want it to do? Who will see it? Is the goal to drive sales? Is it to sort of wow guests? Maybe it's to educate employees internally. So there's a lot of different reasons for someone sort of making the investment in a video wall. But all those things ideally should be thought about, beforehand, before they go out there and start pricing out technology. Because the content, on the back end can really drive what type of video wall or digital signage system that you're going to need. Try to answer all those questions before engaging with a technology provider. Once you identify sort of all those goals and those objectives, then it's a good time to engage with someone like an integrator or display manufacturer. The answers to those questions, can help build sort of that framework for your content strategy and planning once you're ready to go down the road. Just don't miss that step. It's very important. Can really make a huge impact on the success of the overall project.
So Todd, I got a funny question is, how come content is always an afterthought? I mean, it always is. And when should you start thinking about the budget, for these projects for content?
Sure, good question. I can't tell you how many times we get calls just a week or two before a major installation, and it's a project where people put in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars into this technology, soup to nuts. And it baffles me sometimes to know why content wasn't part of the strategy all along. I think we see often that someone in IT or operations departments, facilities, those type of people, those folks get involved in these projects. They sort of spearhead these projects early on. They're the ones who are responsible for, getting this technology, understanding that, the capital dollars that need to go into this project, and they sort of spearhead that. But it's typically, in not all projects, but in a lot of projects, not until sort of the end stages that someone informs marketing or advertising that this is going in and there's going to need to be media and content on this. I mean, really, at the end of the day, the purpose for having this goes back to the purpose again, is what's going to be displayed on it. I mean, the technology and everything else is extremely important, but what viewers are going to take from this, and whoever's viewing it at the end of the day, and debatably, is what did they see on that screen? Did it make an impression on them? Was it remarkable? Did they tell friends? Did they share it on social media? And when it's an afterthought, it's typically not budgeted well. It's harder to get those dollars out of the marketing or advertising departments to put quality content on there that's really going to resonate with the audience, as opposed to building that into the capital dollars that are put aside for the project, including the hardware and software. You can build a bigger budget. You can think about this longer. You can plan better, and thus you'll be able to impact your viewers and really sort of get that return on experience that we're looking for. For integrators and display manufacturers, really, you guys should be strategizing with your customers before you start selling the hardware to them. Again, it all goes back to content. Sort of understand your customers' needs and objectives before you sell them that equipment. It can help with the overall success of the project.
Good. It's funny, sometimes I see as an AV designer, we plan for these big, huge video walls, and a lot of you guys can see that also, is that they turn the wall on and they have all their investors or people that sort of justified all this equipment for all these months, and they're playing a PowerPoint created by a guy in the marketing department, and the video wall is not showing the capabilities that it can be, and it's pretty disheartening to show that this technology and the video wall and what it can do, and you have basically a static video playing on the screen, and it just breaks my heart every time. Anyway, so the best thing to do is get great content. Another thing I want to talk about is, Chanan, how about we talk to you about, just like, video walls come in different sizes and resolutions. And, if you could talk a little bit about the aspect ratio and just resolutions for video walls, because, that's what you do. You do some really great hardware for this.
Sure. So I think at the end of the day, regardless of where the application is for video walls, and I think, Mike, we have a good slide, for this one for the aspect ratio side of things. And you look at a space, and everyone basically has a 16 by 9 or 16 by 10 in all different types of environments at home or at their office. And the idea is that people want to break away when you have that lobby wow factor, similar to what I have in the background behind me in this space. And people want to be wowed when you walk into a building. And, that started that process a few years back, as moving away from standard 16 by 9s to what we have on our desktop now, which, Mike Green, one of the people I work with, actually got promoted yesterday to Chief Revenue Officer. So congrats to him. And, he also has the panoramic experience when he is working. And when he's working, it's because it gives you a different dimension of how easy it is to work. Now that's carrying over into a workplace. That's carrying into a wow factor in a arena. That's carrying over into so many different types of applications. So the idea is you need to understand how to impress people when they walk in that lobby. You need to understand what they're looking for that's going to make it dynamic, between having the right playback from like a Zignage, having the right content from Todd and his team, and making sure that these things are carried over correctly. And I think when most people look at these spaces, they start off the conversation, let's put a screen up there. And that's such a terrible way to look at it, right? Like we talked about the persona before. You want to make sure that you go into a space. Like I can't tell you how many projects that I've done over the years that they start off with that and they say, well, how do we make it look special? And that's really the conversation that has to be had, is how do you understand all these pieces? So number one is resolution is changing at a rapid pace on a good way. And that means you could create more dynamic content that can be more and more immersive. But at the end of the day, if you're doing just a standard aspect ratio in a lobby, it's going to look just as boring as it did yesterday. So you have to think about what you want for the space and think about where's resolution going. It's obviously going to higher resolutions. Aspect ratios, you want something that's dynamic in the space. You know, we've done plenty of projects with one of the guys that are actually attending this with Bill Chamberlain and his team. You know, it's, you do a space, you want an impression in the atrium. You have to do it right. And you have to think about aspect ratio. You have to think about resolution as a, you know, as a, within the process, as one of those steps to make sure it's done correctly.
Yeah, very good. You're absolutely right. Hey, Michael Katz, I have a question for you. What type of applications are involved in digital signage?
So digital signage is like an umbrella covering many aspects of content creation, design, and utilization. Examples include procedural animation, which is the visual that Michael's playing right now. This is actually a 25-foot, 90-degree angled video wall that has rendered a procedural animation on it. There's no information, but it is definitely a wow factor. So people come into the lobby, instead of looking at a blank wall, they're looking at something interesting. And there's other content that's plays throughout the day. Also, in addition to procedural animation, we have retail kiosks, digital menu boards. So Zignage has been working with OEM companies such as Poistoloid. So when you go into a 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts, that's actually all our software command and control all that information. Even though our name isn't on it, you've seen it probably every day. And then we're really known for financial and sports tickers, triggers, wayfinding, which you need now in the pandemic. You can't go aimlessly throughout a building. You have to know exactly where you're going. Widgets, and then audio and visual customization and others.
Very good. Well, thank you, Michael. So Todd, I've got a question for you. You know, I'm planning on these video walls. It's really good to visualize what's going on with the plan and how video is going to be played on these displays. Like, talk to me about how can pre-visualizations help everyone involved in the project?
Sure. It's a little bit of a tongue twister, but for those who aren't familiar, you know, it's sometimes called previs or pre-visualization. And sort of the goal is to help someone visualize a space before a video wall or digital signage display is actually in that location. You know, oftentimes you'll see static renderings of spaces where video wall is going to be, you know, in the surroundings, and that works. But you can take it 5 steps further and really help everybody out, especially the, you know, the end client, who's would be purchasing something like this, by doing, you know, sort of a 3D. You can call it fly through. It's another take on a pre-visualization. So you show them the space from many different viewpoints built out. You know, it can be based on an artist rendering that exists, or if it's a space that's already there, and they're simply, you know, maybe doing a little bit of construction or some moving some things around to make room for some sort of dynamic display. What you can do is sort of bring that into a 3D program, and we do this for a lot of our clients and partners, and sort of show them, after we understand all the specifications of the displays that are going to go in this space and physical sizes and everything's to scale, is build out some content samples to display. And that was a good example right there, Mike. That was a city courtyard. To build out some examples of content that can be placed on the displays and allows people to really get sort of a walkthrough, a much better idea, you know, of that space with content on the screens. And that's really the kicker. People love to see some content that they've already envisioned or that they've mentioned to people like Chanan. You know, that they want on there. They might have that idea already if they've thought about the purpose behind the screens. And for, you know, technology folks, it's a great sales tool. It really is. It's so much more effective. It helps your bid sort of rise to the top and stand out and differentiate yourselves from others if you have that tool. And we have partners that we do a lot of these for, and they win so many jobs by showing this, because it's much more effective than, again, just that sort of static image that shows where the screen will go and that's it. This shows them some content. You can put their logo up there and bring it to life, and it really wows them. But on the back end of that too, once a project is underway, you know, previs are a great tool for sort of all the stakeholders to be part of the process. It's great to show proof of concept previews for the content that's being built before the installation happens, because most projects you should really be building out content well before the construction starts and things start to go up in that space. So that way we can use a visual of that space with the display there and start showing the concepts of content that we're working on and pass it around to all the stakeholders to get sign-offs and continue to move forward to sort of keep the content on target. That way, when that thing gets turned on, and Mike sort of alluded to this earlier, once thing gets turned on, you're not putting a PowerPoint or just a stock image or a logo up there. There's impactful content already playing, and everybody's sort of sitting around watching for that thing to be unveiled, that huge investment they've made. It's making the best first impression that it can be. And that's sort of the goal there. And that could be the difference, really, for someone saying that was absolutely worth it, or someone saying, I'm not impressed. And then they scramble to find content.
So I was thinking, Todd, we could talk about something that actually happened 2 weeks ago, you and I,
Yep.
that we were working on a project in, what was it, the Midwest or the Rockies area, a sports book project with one of our integrators. And the integrator says to me, he goes, they want to do a sports book. They want to replace the static sign on the outside of the casino. And I mean, they basically said to me, like, what else can we give them to help, move this along? And as an integrator, that's a very important question to ask. How can you make the end user more educated on what they're buying? So we actually engaged Todd and said, can you help us give us a previs and a pre-visualization? And once they saw an animation of this football player running and static image over here of the sports ticker, and then an action video over here and advertising here, they're like, oh, now I know what we're investing in here. It was very clear. Yeah. And that's a project that probably would not have happened for another 6 to 9 months. And now we're expecting that order in Q1 of 2021.
It's huge. Yeah, I mean, they passed it around to their whole team, and people quickly jump on board, and they can get fast tracked versus just kind of putting it aside because they're not really sure the impact that it'll make. Give them a glimpse of that, and it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, people are very visual. They need to see things in, moving and actually in the real world environment. So that's a good example. Thank you, Chanan. I got a question for you also, Chanan. Are you seeing more LCD or LED applications today? And then using these into it like an indoor area, how does it differ?
I think, first of all, I think I may have a chart on this one about just showing about the cost side of things for a second. So, I mean, from a personal level at PrimeView, I remember we went in 2018 from reading probably somewhere along 80-90% LCD to in 2019 flipping that switch completely of being about 90% LED, just in 1 year, jumping from LCD 1 year LED. And I think the real game changer, honestly, is a cost factor, because as the cost, it's no longer a 10x or a 5x, situation where LED is costing so much more than LCD. It almost gets to the point now where you could have a legitimate conversation about return on investment, TCO, what is the total cost of ownership? Because, we have people that are attending right now. I'll give you an example, Daniel Drew. We did a small video wall with him years ago. Well, if he's looking to replace that at his college, right? And now he wants to replace that 2x2, guess what? He's not going to replace it with LCD again. It's illogical. You're going to do an LED and you're trying to fit something that fits that 110 inch that's economical. So I think indoor and outdoor LED are having an explosion of new business, and it's only going to continue. On the outdoor side, we're very, very blessed, I would say. In the last year and a half, we're seeing finer pixel pitch LEDs where now the bulbs in between are much tighter. So as a result of that, you could have even close-up experiences. So we're seeing new applications for rooftops, where now they have an amenity package because of COVID-19, that people during COVID-19 want to sit on top of a hotel and watch the game. They're not going to the Super Bowl, but they're at a hotel and they want to watch the game. Or you have churches now that want to do these things, outdoor churches, because of COVID. Vaccine, no vaccine, they want to be socially distant, feel safe. So as cost continues to come down, it's going to completely annihilate the LCD side of the house, which quite frankly is sort of boring. I mean, I get this every day, like, how do we get rid of the bezels? I hate the bezels. It's a real problem. You need to get rid of the bezels if you want to see things. So with the exception really of command and control, mission critical environments where they need to be this close up and they don't have, a big budget or a healthy budget, LCD will exist. or even QSRs, for example, like drive-through business. We're going to see some nice business there. But LED is here to stay, no question about it.
Good. Well, thank you, Hanan. Hey, Todd, question for you. What's the best method for creating content, and how do you keep it fresh?
Interesting question. I don't really know if I have the perfect answer for the first part of it, because it really depends on the project. There's a million different projects, you know, just like most people ask us for pricing up front right away. And it's like, well, we need to understand the scope of the project. We've got probably a list of 25 or more questions to ask you before we can even work our way down to price, because it's not a one size fits all approach. It's really not. There's so many different applications out there, as what Hanan alluded to, and they all require sort of a different approach to the content. But, you know, if you kind of go back to understanding your audience, the viewer persona, that sort of will help guide you down the road to, you know, creating content. Some applications, you know, big public facing things, Times Square, some of these big things out there where you're really just trying to wow people and just, you know, create sort of that factor of experience. And that's going to require some really high end stuff, you know, a professional team to create some stuff that's going to give them the return on what they've purchased there and help fulfill the purpose behind it. Some internal stuff, single displays or small networks of displays, you know, at the end of the day, if they're in an office building or a hospital or somewhere, you know, that kind of content, you know, can be created on probably simpler programs. You still need a well thought out strategy. You still need a professional to create it. But you kind of, it boils down to, you know, what's the impact? What's the audience like, you know, dwell times, how long are they looking at it? How long are they, the average person passing through the doors? So all those things will sort of help drive your you know, techniques in creating that content. You know, for render impact, for example, we're doing a lot of the bigger stuff, the video wall stuff, and we use programs like Cinema 4D, After Effects, Houdini, a little more advanced programs that, you know, require more training, you know, more of a skill set to create the impact that people want, and that's what our clients are asking for. In terms of keeping the content fresh, you know, that's, again, it depends on the questions to all those answers. You know, how long is someone in your space? What does that person look like? Who are they? If you can sort of understand the metrics, that should help, you know, guide, you know, how fresh the content needs to be. You know, if it's an area where it's a different person who comes in every few minutes, they're only there for a few minutes, and they're probably not going to come in for weeks or months again, you know, you can get away with not updating your content as much, or possibly repurposing it and giving it just a quick, fresh update. But if it's a place where people are hanging out for a very long time and they're there often, you know, say a cafe and sort of a corporate lobby or something where people are there every day, day in and day out, you really need to keep that stuff fresh, or it'll become wallpaper at the end of the day. And then it's not really giving you that your return on your investment. People need to pay attention to it. It needs to, you know, grab their attention. That's typically the idea behind it.
Very good. Well, thank you, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
Hanan, I got a question for you. Like, from workplace technology to lobby, wow factors, like, what are the key drivers for this?
It's a fully loaded question, so I'm going to try to be brief in answering this. But I think from a workplace technology perspective, I think there's no question that, you know, now it's a new reality with, or new normal, for lack of a better term, with COVID. But I would say that whether you're going to be getting the vaccine soon or in 3 to 6 months from now, your workplace technology is going to be forever different. I think you're going to see a lot more people working from virtual environments. So with that said, from what we're seeing from the architectural community and what they're sharing with us on the architectural side, I do believe strongly, and I know there's some integrators on the call that are going to hate me for saying this, but I believe the days of doing 10,000 huddle rooms are gone. I'm sorry, they're just gone. And I know there's some great top 50 integrators that are on this call, on this attendee, but that's just the reality. In the same token, I think the small conference rooms, I don't know how much demand there's going to be there. The reality is people now know how to work remotely. They just do, because they had to the last 9 months. So while some people definitely have their wives and their significant others pushing them out the door to go to work, you know, I do believe that when people go to work, it's going to be for a large meeting room. It's going to be for a town hall. It's a multi-purpose room. So we're actually focusing tremendously in PrimeView, saying, don't give a guy another display. Don't give this designer, don't give her what she wants. Listen to the marketplace and say, you know what? People are going to be sitting in a conference room, maybe not as close as they used to before. They're not going to be packing all in there, 30 people on a room that should sit 10 people. It's going to be the opposite now. Now you're going to have a conference room that sits 30 people, but in reality, because of social distancing and whatnot, people are going to probably sit, and it'll sit 10 in a room that says 30. So the technology is to change for that. And I know we have some architects that are joining us and attending as well today. It's so important to understand you have ambient light coming in. So if you have ambient light coming in, that projection LCD technology that you thought worked 5 years ago can't. I mean, I still will never forget when I went to Gensler, their HQ in LA, and they said to me, what kind of value add is PrimeView going to bring? And this is one of their directors. I'll never forget this conversation. And I said, well, for starters, I put my PowerPoint up on your display to try to do a presentation. I can't see my own PowerPoint presentation. And you're paying what, $400 a square foot for this space? You can't see any presentations, but you nail the Kalikata marble. The desk is gorgeous. These chairs are gorgeous. The lighting, the wall, everything is gorgeous, but you can't even use the conference room functionally. So these are real issues. Now, translating that to away from the workplace technology, going to, let's say, a lobby wow factor, I think the key drivers there are going to be is how are you going to get people to come to your building? You're going to have to create a personality in that lobby that, that experience with the waves, like we spoke about earlier before. You're going to have to create a community, and you could do communities through the right content, the right signage on a wall when you walk in, right? I mean, we're doing together, some other projects collectively here as a group where hotels, I mean, I have multiple hotels that they found the wow factor in the lobby was cheaper than doing the fancy stone. So, and it keeps it fresh with the right content. So these are really important conversations, and it's not just about the design process. It's not just about the playback. It's not just about the content. It's about all of these things combined. And that's how it's going to look beautiful when you walk into a space with a beautiful wow factor.
Well said. Exactly right. So speaking of that, Michael Katz, I got a question for you. What's the best way to manage content, and who's going to do that?
Great question. So the latter should be decided prior to the start of any digital signage project. So whether it's an internal or external resource or a specific department, could be the marketing department, could be the corporate communications department. I actually had a project with a manufacturer, and the IT director was in charge of it. So we had to train him, which worked out actually very well. So if you have any kind of staffing and you get a training regimen, that's very important. So they understand how to really how to manage everything forever. That's preferred. Otherwise, you have to look at then doing complete automation, which is something that we're going to talk about shortly. That's where our company is going towards, helping clients do automation. And then the CMS software itself should enable the following features. And this is kind of a long list, I apologize, but I want to make sure I'm thorough. So status of equipment condition, settings and configuration, ability to manage user accounts or user groups, reporting on actions taken by the users, upload and manage various types of content such as media loops, RSS feeds, videos, etc. Create and design layouts and templates, create smart campaigns, playback previews, all with various types of transitions. And then you want to schedule everything either per screen or per group, and you want to be able to schedule linear or non-linear. So let's say you have a content that you want to play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you want different content to play Tuesday, Thursday, and then go back to the Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the afternoon on Tuesday. You have to be able to do that as well.
Wow, that's pretty powerful software there. So real quickly, I know so the training for all that, that's pretty simple, right, Michael?
It actually depends on the experience of the people that we're training. I've been on training sessions where the clients have said, no, I understand this, talk about scheduling. And then other people say, I'm new to this, I don't know anything. So the training has been, I went through with a consultant, 7 minutes, I did a 7-minute demo, and then I've seen us do an hour and a half training on this, the same CMS. So it really depends on the experience of the person who's in charge.
Right. Very good. All right, so 2021 is coming up, guys. So what are you guys going to plan for next year that are going to be game changers for the industry? Todd, what's going on in your world?
Here we've got some focus on some research and development into some new sort of techniques. Anybody in this world may have seen like the wave in South Korea. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning, and it's just super viral because it's you just can't stop looking at it, and it's done so well. So we've that inspires us when we see stuff like that. It really inspires us. We've been they call it anamorphic illusion, where, from certain vantage points or viewing angles, there it is. It just looks like it's this three-dimensional display, but it's direct view LED. It's just done really well on the content side, and I'm sure they had a very healthy budget. Probably a lot went into that, some testing as well to get it to look that way. So our team's sort of working on some of those techniques and sort of understanding how that works and experimenting and doing some R&D, because we've already had a few requests for similar type of content. You can call it forced perspective too. I mean, you don't even need a curved display. It could be just a straight 16:9, fine pixel pitch direct view LED, and you can make that display look like it's a room, three-dimensional aspect to it, and some amazing content's happening on the inside. So again, that stuff inspires us. We're spending some time figuring that out, sort of ramping up our understanding of that so we can respond, to those requests. Our clients are starting to ask for it, and we typically like to come through and things like that. So it's pretty fun for us. Just anytime we can deliver that sort of wow factor, cutting edge, and people like Chanan can put those displays in and then bring us along for the ride to create some content like that.
Yeah, that's some pretty wild stuff there, Todd. So maybe if Michael Katz wants to respond to that, what's new coming up in 2021?
Sure. First off, I feel like going swimming. I've seen that video. Can I go to the beach now? Is it too early?
It makes
So
no
there's
sense.
It's too cold.
Well, for me, right? I'm not in Florida like you are,
For me.
but there are many additional features that we're adding to our CMS software, and we typically do a new release every 6 months. So these are always based on clients' requests. And believe it or not, one of the things that we may do is actually eliminate the need for a CMS with automation steps, because a lot of people are, maybe low on resources. Like we mentioned, you have to have certain people that are in charge of the whole process. So one of the things we're doing is trying to do more automation. We're going to be adding more APIs for more sources with additional widgets. And a widget is basically almost any type of information or non-information that we can put on a screen. So it could be a financial ticker, it could be a sports video ticker, it could be social media. There's a lot of different widgets out there, and we're creating widgets for clients all the time. Customization of dashboards to eliminate the training. As you see a kind of a theme here, training is very important, and a lot of companies, they have some difficulties with it. They don't necessarily isolate the people in charge, and it's sometimes very difficult to train clients. Simplistic AI to make smart decisions. We're going to be using Adobe to publish from the creative lists. We publish from Office 365 or Google accounts, integrate PowerPoint and Google Sheets, data visualization, triggers of data feed, delay to real time, smart integration with control systems like Crestron, detect modules failing, and integration with more hardware manufacturers and software developers in order to continue to be flexible, scalable, and provide extremely reliable solutions, and more.
That's a lot going on there. That's good.
We have a lot. We have a lot, for sure.
Hey, Hanan, what's going on in your world?
Sure. So, we definitely look at the market from a different perspective, on a display level, because while 2020 was a successful year for us, we definitely see a lot of the market shifting in the way spaces are going to be utilized. So we have a lot of new products that we're actually launching right now towards the end of this year into next year. And it's really building up on what we did before. So instead of just typical LED, SMD or mini LED, we're putting a big focus on chip on board so we could able to do some touch stuff. We're going to be doing some stuff for the residential side. We're going to expand more of the Fusion Max Outdoor, we call it, which is the turnkey for outdoor projects, which is going to be also not just regular LED, but also like really flexible type of stuff where we could do wrapping of columns, all those types of things. And the 32:9 aspect ratio type of environments, we see a really good market there. We've done some really cool esports projects to date. So the 32:9 is definitely there for us. We have some new stuff going now on a DoD level. We definitely see a lot more government applications. The cool thing that we're doing now is also getting very heavily involved with a company, previously NewTek, now it's owned by VizRT, which is known as NDI integration. And some cool stuff on the rugged eye side of things. You can actually see a quick picture there. True military style type environment. And for the digital signage environments, working on some cool stuff for QSR, the drive-throughs, which is an outdoor LCD technology. And we're really, we're looking at things definitely holistically, saying we don't want to launch new products for the sakes of launching new products. All the new products we're developing now is based off what our clients are saying. We need this. We're trying to accomplish this. And everything else that does it right now, frankly, sucks. So if you could solve that problem, we're with PrimeView. So that's sort of the mindset of how we're developing product. That's always been for the last 20 years how we're doing it. And we're going to continue doing it that way.
Before we go, I got an interesting question that just came in, and here's the question, and you're all going to love this. How do I budget a video wall project? Who wants to take that?
I'll get that one.
All right, come on.
I think that's the biggest challenge, hands down, to budget for it, because it's hard to understand really, what the end game is. So in other words, if you're trying to create a certain experience, let's just say, and the size constraints of the space, and roughly the viewing distance of the viewers in that space and the furthest viewers of that space, then it's very easy to come up with a rough order of magnitude and a budget to establish that. And then obviously you need to make sure you have a designer like Mike Tully involved. You need to make sure you have the playback like a Michael Katz from Signage. You have to write the right content that, like from Todd, to make sure it pops, right? I've been on projects like, this is comical, at a major university. They're not on the call today, so it's okay. I could reference a Big Ten school that spends over $500,000 on a wall. And when I went to go see them and talk about new business opportunities and growth on the campus, the wall was off. And I said, I don't get it. You spent $500,000 on that wall. Why is it not running? He goes, well, we didn't really budget for the content, and no one wants to be responsible on IT level for managing it. And I hear this all day long. So
Exactly.
How do you budget for a video wall? Is really with your head, being smart, saying how I want to use it, where's it going, who do I want to be impacted by this, who's going to be managing it, right? And then it's very easy to decide, are we going LCD? Are we going LED? What pixel pitch should we do here? What's the warranty to look like? Do I have on-site support, managed services? How does that really work? And then that's really where an integrator gets involved on some of these capacities to say, you know what, this is the right solution and why, and we're driving it this way. That's the same way, AV designers like Mike Tully do as well.
Yeah, that's a good stab at that. Thank you, and I appreciate that. So thank you for joining us today. I just want to let you know that a video link of this recording will be sent to you, and also our emails will be on this final slide. But thank you for joining us. Look for more of these webinars to educate you guys, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everybody for
Have a good
joining.
day.
Wait for it. The last slide.
There it is.